Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Host Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. Prime Minister Mia Mottley receives one of Venezuela's top honors. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Friday, 14th July 2023. Details after this important message.
Hubbard's Multi-Department Mount Gay and Hubbard's Tire Bay, located at the Building Supplies Compound in Grand Anse, are reminding the motoring public that another round for licensing and inspection has begun. Just arrived on new shipments of quality furrowed and torque tires to fit all makes and models of vehicles at competitive pricing. Shop early to avoid the hassle of long lines. WhatsApp them on 473-405-5482. Hubbard's, quality service, affordable prices.
Welcome back. Venezuelan President awards Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley one of the Bolivarian Republic's highest honors. Tiana Cole of HGP Nightly News tells us more.
Prime Minister Mia Mottley was awarded one of Venezuela's top honors. The Order of Liberators of Venezuela First Class was conferred by President Nicolas Maduro. The two leaders also engaged in bilateral talks, after which the two agreements were signed by Minister of Foreign Affairs Kerry Simons, who is part of the official delegation. Simons inked an air service agreement and an agri-food agreement, respectively. Mottley and Maduro then signed a joint declaration.
Trinidad and Tobago's Attorney General says there are pieces of legislation, pretty much all of which are already in existence, to address violent crimes, including homicides, as there are now just over 300 murder victims in the Twin Island Republic. The AG was responding to a question from TV6's political editor Jewel Brown after the opening ceremony of a conference focusing on a particular threat posed by artificial intelligence.
During the opening ceremony of the Caribbean Community Regional Workshop on achieving the universalization of the Convention on Certain Conventional Weapons on Tuesday, Attorney General Reginald Amore said CARICOM needs to look at legislation regarding artificial intelligence or AI-enabled lethal autonomous weapons systems, such as those alleged to have been used in Russia's war with Ukraine.
Weapon systems which, once activated, can identify, engage, and destroy targets on their own without further human intervention. While laws have the potential to provide substantial military, law enforcement, and intelligence benefits, the unchecked global use of such systems raises significant ethical, legal, moral, and technical concerns, including cybersecurity and privacy, which can have grave implications for national, regional, and global peace.
However, the conference took place at the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Port of Spain, as Trinidad and Tobago has seen just over 300 murders in the first 6 months of 2023, killings which were carried out by people using weapons that are not autonomous, such as illegal guns. TV6 users sought to find out from the Attorney General what legislative solutions are being pursued to address this. What can you tell the population in terms of what new legislation or amendments to existing legislation could be expected going forward to address the issue of violent crime, homicides in Trinidad and Tobago?
Well, a number of pieces of legislation, pretty much all of which are already in existence. The firearms legislation, the trial by judge alone legislation, that is now in special select committee, and we're bringing it back up in the next parliament.
The Attorney General also spoke about the legislation meant to establish a new and more efficient pre-trial system.
The legislation that and I'm very happy to say, just managed to get both houses of parliament to pass the abolition of preliminary inquiries so that we can get the justice system dealing with the criminals on the street. I have also put the question of bail to a study group that is dealing with it to bring it back onto the agenda. I'm going to get the input of psychologists. It's a holistic effort.
The third session of the 12th Parliament is now on recess. The Attorney General said after Parliament's fourth session begins in September, he would like to refer to concerns reflected by way of a question from the Express newspaper about the pace of the criminal justice system.
When I am talking to my colleagues when we get back into Special Select Committee on trial by judge alone to say that we have to take a realistic look at the delays in our system when we are improving our judicial capacity, trial by judge alone, in the absence of the jury, whether it be 12 or 9 as the case may be, because we need to speed up our justice system. There's no question about that.
Attorney General Amor said the bill is modeled after legislation in St. Lucia and Belize, as he spoke about the legislative approach throughout CARICOM.
I can say that I know the Caribbean is committed, and we've seen that in the regional symposium on crime as a public health challenge. I know the region is committed to improving their laws. I've had inquiries, for instance, from other attorneys general and other lawyers around the Caribbean, and I've already sent them a copy of the JIPA, the fast trial law that I just passed to abolish preliminary inquiries. They are very keen to take that model to go forward, and also trial by judge alone.
Jules Brown, TV6 News.
In the meantime, Attorney General Amor says he will be discussing with 2 other attorneys general within CARICOM the decision by heads of government in April to implement a ban on the civilian use of assault weapons in member states.
At the Hyatt Regency Hotel in Port of Spain on Tuesday, 3 attorneys general from member states of CARICOM joined the representatives of CARICOM's implementation agency for crime and security impacts, the United Nations Office for Disarmament Affairs, and the European Union for a regional workshop on the universalization of the Convention on certain conventional weapons. Among those who spoke at the opening ceremony was Impact's Executive Director, Lieutenant Colonel Michael Jones.
Now, issues relating to disarmament, non-proliferation, and arms control are particularly important for the Caribbean community and are key priorities on the national and regional agenda. We're all aware of the profound negative impact and consequences of the illicit gun trade in our communities, although we don't manufacture or part of any major armed conflict.
The workshop followed last week's 45th regular meeting of CARICOM heads of government in Trinidad and Tobago, which featured talks between them and the U.S. Secretary of State and the U.S. Congressional delegation about the large number of guns manufactured in the U.S. being used to commit murders and other violent crimes in the region. In response to a question from TV6 News, Attorney General Reginald Amor said the regional workshop on Tuesday significantly tied into such recent CARICOM talks.
One is the very strong position that our government under Prime Minister Dr. Rowley has taken on small arms and ammunition coming into the Caribbean. And that's the physical small arms and ammunition coming out of the United States into the region, which I'm very happy to see. Recently, we've had some very good supportive statements coming out of the United States government recognizing the challenge that they need to work with us on, because the guns aren't manufactured here, and yet they're on our streets, attacking our children and our women and our business community and our homes. So it is important for that reason.
But we sought an update about the decision by the CARICOM heads of government to ban the use of assault weapons in the civilian populations of their respective nations during their regional symposium on crime as a public health concern at the Hyatt Regency in Port of Spain in April.
You have your attorneys general here. Is that something that you could also maybe get into a little more detailed conversation about?
Well, on the fringes, yes. We have a couple of attorneys general, and I welcome them today. In my feature address, the Attorney General of the Turks and Caicos Islands, Mrs. Rhonda Lee Bradford Knowles, King's Counsel, and Honorable Mohandal Nandlal, Attorney General of Guyana. So we have a couple of attorneys general here who I am going to want to have discussions with on the fringes of. That's not the focus of this conference.
The regional workshop on Tuesday specifically focused on the need to put legislation in place for lethal autonomous weapons. Jules Brown, TV6 News.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick.
The Customs and Excise Department of St. Lucia warned that it would not stand for the intimidation or physical attack on any of its officers. Stanley Lucian of HTS News Force reports.
In a statement issued Wednesday, the Customs and Excise Department described Tuesday afternoon's gun attack as an unprovoked and cowardly act. The department further states, quote, that any threat, harm, or attempt to harm any one of our officers pursuant of his or her duties will not be tolerated. In this regard, the Customs Department is committed to pursuing any offense against our own to ensure that justice is done. Unquote. The department further pledged its support to the Royal St. Lucia Police Force to ensure that justice is done in this matter and calls on members of the public who may have information about the case to cooperate with the police. The Civil Service Association was represented at Wednesday's emergency meeting by Lawrence Poyot, who denied word of protest action.
The members are not on strike. The members are basically expressing the sympathy. They needed a meeting with the controller of customs. He met with them, regardless of other commitments that he had. He was able to get the Prime Minister and the Commissioner of Police to address the employees. So we are monitoring the situation, and there will be a meeting of all customs employees tomorrow at 1 at the financial complex.
On his Facebook page, St. Lucia's Prime Minister, who was also at the meeting, wrote, quote, I strongly condemn the recent shooting of a dedicated customs officer, an individual who was simply carrying out his duty to protect our borders and ensure the safety of our communities, unquote. St. Lucia's Prime Minister further adds that this was, quote, an attack on the very fabric of law and order, unquote. Stanley Lucian for the HCS News Force.
The United Kingdom celebrates with Bahamas on its 50th independence anniversary.
So celebrating the country's 50th independence was the United Kingdom's Minister for the Americas and the Caribbean, David Rutley. At the Independence State reception, the British minister congratulated the Governor General and Prime Minister on 50 years of economic development, national growth, and democratic strength. Minister Rutley told the Prime Minister the UK would digitize its national archive materials on independence for the people of the Bahamas. The Bahamas flag also flown above Westminster Abbey in London during a special 50th independence service. Further, Minister Rutley met BHM President Tony Myers, whose company is constructing the new Grand Bahama International Airport, funded by UK Export Finance. He learned about the local jobs the project will create and the links it will strengthen with the United Kingdom. Minister Rutley's visit follows meetings with Prime Minister Davis in London before King Charles III's coronation and in Trinidad and Tobago during CARICOM Heads of Government meeting.
Politicians went toe-to-toe in Jamaica's parliament over why some reports of some investigations have not been tabled in the parliament. Natalia Clark of CVM Live reports.
Tongues wagged, voices raised, fingers pointed as members of the government and opposition engaged in another heated discussion in Parliament Tuesday. Such was the case when opposition member Julian Robinson sought answers from Speaker of the House Marissa Dalrymple Philibert as to why several outstanding Auditor General reports have not been tabled in Parliament. She had explained a law provided up to 2 months to table the reports and that she was awaiting advice from the Attorney General. But that apparently did not sit well with Robinson.
The provision relates to public bodies, and the two entities which you refer to are executive agencies, which are governed by an Executive Agency Act. It also refers to the Auditor General doing an audit of annual accounts, whereas in this case, they were performance audits. So even without the opinion of the Auditor General, of the Attorney General, it is clear to me that the provision which you relied on is not relevant to the reports which were done by the Auditor General.
But how does he know what kind of reports are outstanding? Is the question posed by former Security Minister Robert Montague before calling Robinson a coward.
The member rose in his capacity as a member. Yes. And he has informed us that the Auditor General report that you have in your possession is a performance audit. And it is not tabled. So he needs to inform this House how he got that information.
Robinson countered, asking Montague how he knew once upon a time to prepare a 6-page response to a report which was not yet tabled.
Tell us, did you have sight?
Madam
Did you want to go there? Did you have sight of the report before? Did you have sight of the report before? Sit down. Sit down.
No. Madam Speaker.
Don't like you.
Dalrymple Philibert soon intervened, standing tall, demanding order in the House.
I have ruled, and I expect you to respect my ruling. And member from the left, you can answer your questions that you have brought to light at a different time. I have ruled on the matter. I have said why the reports have been tabled, and I'm moving to the next item.
While the Auditor General reports remain a mystery, the Integrity Commission's fifth annual report for 2022-2023 was tabled in the Parliament. CVM Live understands several politicians are being investigated for owning assets disproportionate to their lawful earning. In essence, they're being investigated for alleged illicit enrichment. The damning report also revealed an employee at the Jamaica Customs Agency is being accused of corruption.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
I am Eddie Frederick, wishing you a restful weekend. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.